Ole Miss should handle Mississippi State and take home the Egg Bowl. I have the answer key before Friday's test.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former staff member at Ole Miss. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now it is the number one podcast network, and I think in the world. It's huge. It's massive. That's awesome. On today's show, we'll highlight the players that you need to be keeping an eye on in the Egg Bowl, the prop bets that stand out to me, and our official picks for the game. We'll give you that. Then we'll explain why the idea of Arch Manning and Derrick Nix helping send Ole Miss to Atlanta this season feels downright poetic, even if many Rebel fans aren't exactly eager for that SEC championship game appearance. But first, we'll break down the primary reasons why Ole Miss will win this matchup. And yes, it starts with Kewan Lacy having the kind of performance that could shock everyone outside of Oxford. All of this and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. And a special hello to our insiders and everydayers that make this show what it is, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download that app today. All right, so Ole Miss should win this game. They have the better offensive line, the better defensive line, all of that, the running situation that Mississippi State has right now, and then you have Kewan Lacy. Ole Miss should win this game, but make no mistake, this is the biggest regular season game that Ole Miss has ever played, period, because of what this game could mean. This game could easily be worth about $100 million to the city of Oxford if Ole Miss wins it. I mean, we're not dealing with small potatoes in this right now. And I know people might be tuning in to figure out about the Lane Kiffin thing. That's going to come later on. We're going to do a video on it. Everybody knows what the score is there. This is about why Ole Miss will win the football game. And predictably in this game, Ole Miss has a better football team than Mississippi State. Heck, Ole Miss is 10-1, 6-1 in the Southeastern Conference. Mississippi State is 5-6 and 1-6 in the Southeastern Conference. And their only win, they were down by 14 points to Arkansas. Everybody remembers what the Arkansas Razorbacks have done in the Southeastern Conference. This is a matchup that is favorable to Ole Miss. So what makes me so confident? And this is why I think that Ole Miss is going to win the game. I think Kewan Lacy is the best running back in America. Don't give me Ahmad Hardy. Don't give me Jeremiah Love. Kewan Lacy is amazing. And he's playing against the team that just gave up 300 yards to Ahmad Hardy in a loss to the Missouri Tigers. 2 straight games where Mississippi State kind of got dominated a little bit in the run game. And with Nate Frazier going off for Georgia and then Ahmad Hardy, Kewan Lacy is obviously next in line as a potential problem point for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. So that right there, and his specialty, their secondary is pretty good when they can play as their secondary. Whenever the secondary has to help out with the running game, the secondary becomes kind of iffy. So I think this could be a game that Kewan Lacy only gets 120 yards in the game and a couple of touchdowns, but it opens up the passing attack and makes that vulnerable downfield as well. Kewan Lacy is a massive key to this football game. Second of all, Ole Miss has the better offensive and defensive line in this matchup. Ole Miss's offensive line is better than State's defensive line. Ole Miss's defensive line is better than State's offensive line. And in the Southeastern Conference, when a team matches up and does that, they win about 95% of the time, because the real surefire to lose a football game is to allow the other team to run the ball. And Ole Miss has been able to run the ball. We look at the game against the Florida Gators 2 weeks ago. Kewan Lacy going off 224 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was a machine. Mississippi State is going to be focused on Kewan Lacy. That could mean Deshaun Stribling and Dae'Quan Wright and Deuce Alexander and Trey Willis. And all of those guys have the ability to break out because of the Kewan Lacy and the problem that Mississippi State has on the lines. Now, the Ole Miss defensive line being better than the State offensive line is an important fact. And Ole Miss needs to make Blake Shapen uncomfortable, or Kamario Taylor, or whoever takes snaps, because the way that Mississippi State can make you hurt is through the explosive plays downfield in the passing game, through Brennan Thompson and those guys. And I do think Blake Shapen is going to start this game because he's a better passer down the field, but you could see Kamario Taylor if it goes sideways, or it starts to go sideways, or if Mississippi State just looks at it and says, we can't block them. So we need somebody that's a little bit of an athlete that can make something out of nothing. I think Ole Miss having the better offensive and defensive line is a key point of this matchup. And third of all, Ole Miss knows the score. They're not going to give in and lose in this historic occasion. Ole Miss has a chance to have their most regular season wins in their history. They have a chance to host a playoff game. They have a chance to potentially make the SEC championship game. And we're going to talk about all the stuff you need to be rooting for in the next segment. So stick around for that. There's a couple of games that are really interesting and why you should be looking at those games as Ole Miss fans. But Ole Miss knows the score of what's going on. They're walking into this football game with their eyes open. They had a pretty good week of practice from what I hear. Even with all of the noise, their ability to tune this out, I guess it's kind of old hat at this point in time, but they've had a pretty good week of practice. Now we have to see if this Ole Miss football team is locked in enough to fight against Mississippi State for this game. If you walk in there, there's no way you're going to lose the football game. The drive for winning is so much that you are so locked in and handling what is going on. Ole Miss knows the score of what's happening, and we'll see how it goes in this Egg Bowl game. Now, another thing we're looking at is there's a rumor, we talked about it yesterday on the show with Jaron, that a booster bought a whole bunch of tickets and are giving them out to Ole Miss fans. Now, I don't know if that is the case, but that is the rumor, okay? And they are expecting somewhere around 20,000, 25,000 Ole Miss fans at the game. So much so, this is where I give credence to this conspiracy theory, okay? Ole Miss this week changed the color of the game from, I'm assuming, navy, because they usually wear navy in this game, and the navy and the maroon kind of all blends together, to powder blue, which completely would stand out. It is pretty close and synonymous with that Tennessee orange as far as standing out in that type of an environment. So Ole Miss thinks there's going to be a lot of people at the game. And it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But Ole Miss fans are going to Starkville, regardless of all the noise that's around the program, expecting to see a coronation, expecting to see what this season has been building to this whole time, expecting to see this Ole Miss team go 11-1 and make the college football playoff and host a college football playoff game at least. And because of that, you go to gametime.co, you can look at it, and you look at the Ole Miss section in the Mississippi State Stadium. The only tickets that were for sale were for $3,000. Now, that's somebody obviously doing a price grab, but that's how much a ticket in the Ole Miss section cost, which means Ole Miss fans are traveling to this game. They're going to be there. This is going to be the largest attended game by Ole Miss in Starkville maybe ever. So we'll see exactly how that goes. And, you know, the Egg Bowl, as important as it is, and it is a massively important game, but I'm glad that it's at the beginning of the weekend because it allows you to kind of focus on some other games afterwards. And there's some games that you need to, I don't know, pay attention to. In a year where everything is about the playoff, Ole Miss's SEC title hopes could be getting some unexpected help. We tell you who you need to root for, all of that coming up next. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine those live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It helps keep every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when that first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel and sign up to play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it helps keep all of this free. Locked On is getting ready to change the game yet again, all in the name of having fun following your team. It's coming in December. More details as it's available. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast in America. That is awesome. And it's all because of you. Now, if Ole Miss takes care of business Friday morning, when Ole Miss takes on Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl, which, Realtree helmets, the powder blue road jerseys, white pants, they're kind of a stormtrooper look, kind of iconic look. And it should be interesting. If Ole Miss can pull off that game, you have a situation to where you have other games that you need to root for. And depending on what you're rooting for, depends on what you need to look at. So I went through and found games that could help Ole Miss and added a bonus game for people that might be interested in the SEC championship, but games that help Ole Miss. And we're going to look at that right now because it's not much that could do a lot of help for Ole Miss. And there's a lot of good possibilities in there as well. So this is the rivalry week rooting guide. Okay. These are the games that you need to look at that could help Ole Miss. Number 1 is Texas beating Texas A&M. Texas A&M with a loss to Texas and the record and strength of schedule that A&M has had, Texas A&M would absolutely fall below Ole Miss. That is why that game is important. I think A&M will probably end up hosting a playoff game, but a loss to Texas would see A&M drop below Ole Miss. And also, it is the first part of the rooting guide for Ole Miss getting to Atlanta in the SEC championship game. You need Arch Manning to do what he can to beat Texas A&M, and it would help Ole Miss out overall. If you're interested in the SEC championship game, which I get it, most people aren't, Auburn beating Alabama is the other step that is necessary for Ole Miss to make it to Atlanta. That's beat State, Texas beat A&M, Auburn beat Alabama. Those three things. Alabama's a 4.5-point favorite on the Plains. It's a night game at Jordan-Hare. And Texas A&M is, I think, a 3-point favorite or something like that against Texas. It's not outside the realm of possibility that the underdog wins both of those games and Ole Miss ends up in Atlanta. And Auburn, plays are being called by Derrick Nix, who spent about 20 years at Ole Miss, friend of the family, essentially. So it'd be poetic. It would at least be poetic that even in a year that Ole Miss doesn't want to necessarily go to Atlanta, Auburn beats Alabama, Texas beats Texas A&M, Ole Miss beats Mississippi State, and they're playing Georgia in a rematch in Atlanta. So that is at least interesting. Now, other things that can happen that Ole Miss needs to be rooting for this weekend. You need Georgia Tech to beat Georgia. And this is not necessarily for SEC championship game or playoffs or anything, but if Georgia Tech beats Georgia, Georgia has 2 losses. And they would drop probably into the traveling to a playoff game portion of the broadcast with a loss to the Yellow Jackets. That is something you should be monitoring. They took them to 8 overtimes a year ago in Athens. Surely at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, they'll give them a good game this year, but they can't really stop anybody. I mean, Buster Faulkner, offensive coordinator, is a wizard, but it is what it is. You need Oklahoma to beat LSU. Now, Oklahoma's the favorite by like 10 points, but you need Oklahoma to win that game. This is the top notch on your resume. Oklahoma is everything to your resume. If they're 8th in the country and you beat them in Norman, that looks good on your resume. So you need Oklahoma to beat LSU. By the same token, you need Tulane to beat Charlotte. Now, they should beat Charlotte. Charlotte's a 1-10 team, but you need Tulane to win that game and continue to be ranked in the college football playoff rankings. Right now, Ole Miss has 2 wins over a team in the college football playoff field. If Tulane loses, they would fall out. That would drop down to 1. Now, Oklahoma is not going to change. And like I said, that is the shining star on your resume. Now, a couple of other things that could help you out a little bit, okay, that kind of goes into other teams' resumes. It's like the thing of a thing. It's like 2 or 3 steps down the road. But Washington beating Oregon would be an easy one because that's a straightforward thing. If Oregon loses a game, they're probably going to be eliminated from the playoffs, if we're going to be honest about it. And Washington's 8-2 or 8-3 going into this game. It's a good team. Damon Williams, former Ole Miss commit, is the quarterback for the Washington Huskies. They can help Ole Miss out as well. And finally, Arizona needs to beat Arizona State. And this is the reason for that. Arizona State got they are the team that beat Texas Tech. Arizona State is the team that beat Texas Tech, and everybody famously, after Ole Miss only beat the Citadel 49-0, Texas Tech jumped them because they beat BYU. But Texas Tech's loss is Arizona State, which means when the resume gets looked at farther down the road, how far Ole Miss can rise up will be dependent on how far Texas Tech can rise up. And Texas Tech having an unranked loss to Arizona State would be important. It feels like Arizona's ranked as well, by the way. But those are the 7 or so matchups that you need to watch for outside of the Ole Miss Mississippi State game this weekend. Listen, good football teams, all of that stuff, but there's a path for Ole Miss to make it to the SEC championship game. And Arch Manning and Derrick Nix can be instrumental in making that happen. That's kind of cool because, anytime a Manning's involved, because, of course, when you're doing something with Ole Miss football, a Manning is going to be involved. But Derrick Nix, who spent a ton of time in Oxford and all of that, he survived coaching staffs, like multiple coaching staffs up to this point. Him going to Auburn and calling plays, they could be the key to unlocking that Auburn offense against that Alabama defense. So we'll see exactly how it goes. Anyway, when we come back, we are going to start to talk about players to watch and what you need to look for from picks and props perspective. All of that's coming up next. The holidays will always feel a little bit easier when you already know the perfect gift, and Omaha Steaks makes that almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to friends and family, Omaha Steaks are delivering handcrafted perfection right to your door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. The quality is exactly what you hope for. Incredible tender steaks, rich flavor, and meals that make hosting or weekend cooking easier. Honestly, it's the kind of gift that brings people together. And if you don't need to guess anyone's size either whenever you're looking for it. So save big on an unforgettable gift with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use the promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details. So let's get down to some brass tacks when it comes to this game. Now, one thing that's interesting, I do think players to watch are unbelievably important in this game, and all three of them have to have really good games for Ole Miss to potentially win it, because State's a better team than they were a year ago. So Mississippi State's going to be a problem. Don't misunderstand that at all. But these three players can directly impact what's going on in the game and have a chance to. Honestly, if they're good, Ole Miss is going to be good. Number one, Trinidad Chambliss, obviously. Your quarterback has to play well. Do not turn the ball over. No operation penalties. Be completely locked in. If that happens, you are going to be fine. Kewan Lacy, we talked about Ahmad Hardy earlier on in the program and what Kewan Lacy can do. The one that I'm interested in players to watch that I'm going to be watching is Suntarine Perkins. Listen, Mississippi State likes to throw the ball down the field. They can make you hurt throwing the ball down the field. The key to doing that is having time to throw the ball down the field. So Suntarine Perkins and Prince Willem Mielen and Cam Franklin and Deshaun Womack and all those guys, they kind of have a role to play in this game, in my opinion. You look at what's going on betting-wise for this game, according to FanDuel, Ole Miss is favored by a little over a touchdown, 7.5 points. The over-under is at 62.5, which is interesting to me. General rule of thumb prop bet for this game is take the under pretty consistently. So this feels like an underplay because you'll see what I think is going to happen. I think it's pretty solidly an underplay. But here's the caveat on that. Mississippi State has to stop the run for the under to be a play. If Ole Miss can run the ball up and down the field and they just get that going and it causes everything to get unlocked, Mississippi State's going to be in trouble in this game. And the over could hit because it could be a pretty wide margin game. But I don't think so. If you just go by the history of this game, everybody thought last year was going to be a blowout. It wasn't. It was dicey all the way up until the end. The year before that, it was dicey all the way up until the end. The year before that, Ole Miss lost the game. So I expect this game to be cagey, and I expect the under to potentially hit in this game. Prop bets, I think Kewan Lacy, 2 touchdowns over the course of this game. I do think he's going to score. He's the red zone weapon the Rebels, if they'd have had a year ago, if we're going to be completely honest, they would have made the playoffs then. But they have them this year, and we'll see how it looks. Now, I'm interested to see if Suntarine Perkins has multiple sacks in this game, if he can make Blake Shapen hurt a little bit, where his eyes are dropping down and he's looking at the rush. That's going to be a big deal of seeing. And Kamario Taylor, you just have to do your Lenore Sellers game plan if Taylor comes into the game, or DJ Lagway or something like that, because that's kind of what the game plan is if that happens. Trinidad Chambliss, hey, it's going to be low 50s, high 40s, a typical Egg Bowl game. But it's nice that a quarterback from Michigan is the one behind center in the game. So if it's chilly, if it's windy, I have confidence that Trinidad will be able to do the job. So my official score prediction for this game, I'm going with Ole Miss 24, Mississippi State, not Florida, Mississippi State 14. Sorry about that. Ole Miss 24, Mississippi State 14 is my prediction. And we'll see exactly how that ends up. This is a game that could be worth near $100 million for the city of Oxford if Ole Miss wins it. This could be a game that could be the best regular season in the history of Ole Miss. Now, we count the perfect season. They went 9-0 in the perfect season. This is the most regular season wins. Playoff game, absolutely massive. That'll probably be the largest town or city in Mississippi that day. There could be 200,000 people there for Miami or SMU or Notre Dame or whoever's coming to town, or Alabama. I saw that last night. Ole Miss matched up with Alabama. And it's like, okay, that's okay. So we'll see what it looks like. But everything is on the table for this Ole Miss team moving forward. We will Live stream pregame tomorrow, 2 hours before the game, just like always. We will post-game live stream right after the game instead of a normal, regular Friday podcast because of the timing of it. And we will likely, if there's an announcement of Lane Kiffin on Saturday, we're going to live stream. And then we're going to sleep. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Enjoy the leftovers. Be safe traveling to whatever family event you're going to today. Enjoy this Thanksgiving. Enjoy this season. Show gratitude for everything and be thankful that this is going on. We'll deal with the other stuff when the other stuff happens, but be thankful for this season. Ole Miss, if you're below the age of 65 years old, this is the greatest regular season of your life. And I think it's important to remember that. So everybody, happy Thanksgiving. Be safe today. And let's enjoy the Egg Bowl on Friday. Should be a lot of fun. Anyway, thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it's absolutely free. Your support means the world to us. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy is breaking down the best conference in all of college sports, from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hotty toddy, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.